The dust hung thick in the air of the Silver Dollar Saloon, mixing with tobacco smoke and the sour stench of whiskey. Wyoming Territory, 1878, a place where men settled disputes with lead and women were scarcer than honest cards. The afternoon sun blazed through grimy windows, casting long shadows across the scarred wooden floor where Clara Mayfield stood, her hands trembling despite the suffocating heat. "Gentlemen," her father, Samuel Mayfield, slurred from the poker table, his bloodshot eyes avoiding his daughter's face. "I'm putting up something more valuable than gold." Clara's heart plummeted. She'd seen that desperate gleam in his eyes before when he'd sold their last horse, when he'd pawned her mother's wedding ring. But this time was different. This time. His gaze flickered toward her. "Pa, no!" The words barely escaped her lips, but in the hushed saloon, they rang out like a gunshot. Samuel's jaw tightened. "Quiet, girl. Men are conducting business." The other players leaned back in their chairs. Interest peaked. Among them sat Silas Thornton, his weathered face unreadable beneath the brim of his black Stetson. Unlike the others, whose eyes gleamed with predatory interest. Silas remained still, his calloused fingers resting on his cards. "What exactly are you proposing?" Mayfield asked Jake Morrison, a cattle buyer known for his wandering hands and rotten teeth. Samuel's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "My daughter, 18 years old, untouched, knows her place, can cook, clean, tend house, worth more than the 500 I owe." The room erupted. Men whistled and hooted, some standing to get a better look at Clara. She felt their eyes crawling over her like spiders, taking in her simple calico dress, the small scar that ran along her left cheekbone, a reminder of the night her father had thrown a bottle in one of his drunken rages. "Untouched, you say?" Morrison licked his lips. "How can we be sure?" Clara's cheeks burned with humiliation. She wanted to run, to flee into the endless Wyoming plains. But where would she go? Her mother had died 3 winters past, leaving her alone with a father who loved whiskey and cards more than his own blood. "I give you my word," Samuel said, though his word had long since lost any value in this town. "Your word ain't worth the dust on my boots," spat another player. "But I'll take the bet. 500 says I win this hand." 600, Morrison countered, his grin revealing blackened gums. 7, came another voice. Clara watched in horror as men bid on her like livestock at auction. Her fingernails dug into her palms, drawing blood. Is this what her life had come to, sold to pay her father's debts? Her virtue and future bartered away for a few hands of cards. Through the chaos, she noticed Silas hadn't moved. He sat like granite, his storm-gray eyes fixed not on her body like the others, but on her face. In those eyes, she saw something unexpected, not lust or greed, but a flicker of something else. Recognition, sadness. 1,000, Silas said quietly. The saloon fell silent. Even the bartender stopped polishing glasses. Morrison sputtered. That's near twice what she's worth." Silas's gaze never left Clara's. "Then you won't mind if I claim the bet?" "Now hold on," Samuel protested, suddenly realizing he might have undervalued his daughter. "Maybe we should—" "You already put her up." Silas cut him off, his voice cold as mountain stone. "Unless you're saying your word truly is worthless." Samuel's face flushed red, but he knew the code of the West. Back out of a bet in front of witnesses, and you might as well paint a target on your back. "Fine," he growled. 1,000. Winner takes all." The deal was struck. Fresh cards were dealt with practiced hands. Clara found herself praying not for her father to win, for she knew his luck had long since abandoned him, but for what that whoever won would be merciful that seemed as likely as rain in July. She studied Silas from beneath lowered lashes. She'd heard of him. Of course, everyone in the territory knew of Silas Thornton, the man who'd built his ranch from nothing, who'd survived Indian raids and cattle rustlers. They also whispered about the woman he'd loved and lost, though no one dared speak of it to his face. The game progressed with agonizing slowness. One by one, players folded until only 3 remained: Samuel, Morrison, and Silas. Sweat poured down her father's face as he stared at his cards. Morrison grinned like a coyote eyeing a wounded rabbit. "I'll raise," Morrison said, pushing chips forward. "Another 200. Samuel's hands shook. He had nothing left to bet. "I'll cover him." Silas said, "If he wins, the debt's clear. If he loses—" He let the words hang. "Why would you do that?" Morrison demanded. "Because I want this to be fair and square. No disputes later." Clara's father grabbed the lifeline like a drowning man. Yes, I accept." The final cards were revealed. Morrison had 3 queens. Samuel's face crumpled. He held 2 pairs, jacks and 10s. Not enough. Then Silas laid down his hand. A straight flush. "No!" Samuel slammed his fist on the table, sending chips scattering. "You cheated! You must have—" Silas stood slowly, his 6-foot frame unfolding with dangerous grace. "Careful! Mayfield, you questioning my honor?" Samuel shrank back. Even drunk, he wasn't fool enough to challenge Silas Thornton. "Then it's settled." Silas looked directly at Clara. "She's mine now." The word sent ice through Clara's veins. She wanted to scream, to rail against the injustice. But what good would it do in the eyes of everyone present? She was now property, transferred from one man to another like a horse or a piece of land. Virgin bride was sold, someone whispered. Rich Cowboy claimed her fiercely. But as Silas approached her, Clara noticed his hands were steady, not grasping. His eyes held that same strange sadness. "Miss Mayfield," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I need you to come with me now. Don't fight, don't run. Not here, not in front of them." "And if I refuse?" she whispered back, though they both knew she had no real choice. "Then things get complicated, and neither of us wants that." Clara looked around the saloon at her father. Who couldn't meet her eyes? At Morrison, whose face twisted with disappointed rage, at the crowd of men who saw her as nothing more than flesh to be owned. She lifted her chin, finding a reserve of strength she didn't know she possessed. "I'll need to gather my things." "You have 5 minutes," Silas said. He turned to the crowd. "Anyone follows us, anyone thinks to cause trouble, will answer to me. The girl is under my protection now." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Men who might have considered following, perhaps attempting to rescue Clara for their own purposes, thought better of it. Silas Thornton's reputation with a gun was well earned. Clara climbed the narrow stairs to the small room above the saloon where she and her father had been staying. Her possessions fit into a single carpet bag: 2 dresses, her mother's Bible, a silver hairbrush, and a small daguerreotype of her parents from happier days. She paused at the cracked mirror, studying her reflection. The scar on her cheek seemed more prominent today, a permanent reminder that she'd never been safe. Not really. Now she was heading into the unknown with a man who'd bought her like cattle. Yet something in Silas's eyes haunted her. When he'd looked at her, it wasn't with the hungry gaze of the others. It was as if he saw something in her that reminded him of what or whom? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Time's up, Miss Mayfield." She opened the door to find Silas waiting, hat in hand. The gesture surprised her. Men didn't remove their hats for saloon girls or gambling stakes. "I'm not what you think I am," she said, needing him to know. "Whatever my father told you." "I know exactly what you are," he interrupted, but his tone was gentle. "You're a young woman dealt a bad hand by fate and a worse father. Beyond that, we'll see." They descended the stairs together. The saloon had grown quiet, men parting as Silas led her through. At the door, Clara turned back one last time. Her father sat slumped at the poker table, staring at the scattered cards. "Pa!" she called out. He looked up, and for a moment, she saw the man he'd been before grief and whiskey had hollowed him out. "I'm sorry, Clara girl," he mumbled. "Your ma would have killed me for this." "Yes," Clara agreed quietly. "She would have." Then Silas's hand was at her elbow, guiding her into the blazing afternoon sun. His horse, a magnificent black stallion, waited at the hitching post. He helped her mount, then swung up behind her. She could feel the solid warmth of him, smell leather and sage. "Where are we going?" she asked as they rode out of town, leaving behind the only life she'd known. "Thornton Ranch. It's a day's ride, maybe more if the weather turns." And then he was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Finally," he said, "then we figure out what comes next. One thing at a time. Miss Mayfield." As the town faded behind them and the vast Wyoming territory stretched ahead, Clara realized she was truly alone with this stranger who now, by all rights, owned her. Fear and anger warred in her chest, but beneath them, something else stirred. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps it was simply the recognition that any fate had to be better than what awaited her in that saloon. The sun beat down mercilessly as they rode, and Clara found herself wondering about the man behind her. What kind of person paid $1,000 for a woman he didn't know? What did he want from her? And why did he look at her as if she were a ghost from his past? The questions would have to wait. For now, there was only the rhythm of hoofbeats, the endless sky, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. Clara Mayfield was no longer her father's daughter. She was Silas Thornton's. What property ward? Something else entirely. Time would tell, she supposed. In the West, it always did. The trail stretched endlessly before them, a dusty ribbon cutting through sagebrush and red rock. Clara had never been this far from town, never seen the world beyond the familiar streets and saloons. Her back ached from sitting rigid in the saddle, determined not to lean against Silas despite the exhaustion seeping into her bones. They'd been riding for hours in silence, save for the steady clip-clop of hooves and the distant cry of hawks circling overhead. The sun had begun its descent, painting the mountains in shades of copper and gold. "We'll need to stop soon," Silas said, his first words since leaving town. "There's a creek about 2 miles ahead, good place to water the horse and rest." Clara nodded stiffly. Her throat was parched, but she wouldn't ask him for water. She wouldn't ask him for anything. The promised creek appeared like a miracle in the desert landscape, its banks lined with cottonwoods that offered blessed shade. Silas dismounted first, then reached up to help her down. Clara hesitated before accepting his hand, hating how her legs trembled when her feet touched ground. "Stretch your legs," he said, leading his stallion to the water. "We've got a ways to go yet." Clara walked to the creek's edge, upstream from where the horse drank. She knelt and cupped the cool water to her lips, then splashed some on her face. When she looked up, she caught Silas watching her with that same unreadable expression. "What?" she challenged, her patience worn thin. "Checking your purchase, making sure you got your money's worth." His jaw tightened, but he didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he pulled hardtack and jerky from his saddlebags, along with a canteen. "Eat," he said, offering her the simple meal. "You'll need your strength." Clara wanted to refuse out of spite, but hunger won. She ate in small bites, aware of his eyes on her. The scar on her cheek seemed to burn under his gaze. "How did you get it?" he asked quietly. "The scar?" Her hand flew to her face involuntarily. "Why do you care?" "Just making conversation." "Well, don't." She turned away, but after a moment, found herself speaking anyway. "My father, he was drunk, threw a bottle. It shattered against the wall, and a piece." She trailed off, angry at herself for sharing even that much. Silas was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," he finally said, and something in his voice suggested he meant it. They finished eating in silence. As Silas repacked the saddlebags, Clara noticed storm clouds building on the horizon, dark and ominous. The wind had picked up, carrying the scent of rain. "Storm's coming," Silas observed, following her gaze. "We need to move." They mounted up again, but they'd barely gone a mile when the wind turned vicious. Dust rose in great billowing clouds, obscuring the trail. Clara's eyes stung, and she could taste grit between her teeth. The horse snorted nervously, dancing sideways. "Hold on," Silas commanded, his arm coming around her waist to steady her. "This is a bad one." The dust storm hit with full force, turning day into twilight. Sand pelted them from all directions, finding every gap in their clothing. Clara pressed back against Silas instinctively, her fear of the storm temporarily overriding her anger at him. He guided the horse off the trail, searching for shelter. Through the swirling dust, Clara glimpsed an outcropping of rock that formed a shallow cave. Silas steered them toward it, dismounting quickly and pulling her down after him. They stumbled into the shelter, leading the frightened horse. The cave wasn't deep, but it blocked the worst of the wind and dust. Silas immediately removed his duster and held it up, creating a barrier between Clara and the storm. "Here," he said, pulling her deeper into the shelter. "Stay close to the rock face." Clara huddled against the stone, acutely aware of how Silas positioned himself between her and the storm's fury. His broad shoulders blocked the wind. His duster held high to shield them both. Dust still swirled around them, but it was bearable now. "These storms," she had to raise her voice over the wind. "Do they happen often?" "Often enough," he replied. "Usually not this bad, though. Must be the season." The horse whinnied nervously, and Silas spent several minutes calming it, speaking in low, soothing tones. Clara watched him work, noting the gentle way he handled the animal despite its size and strength. "You're good with horses," she observed. "Have to be, in my line of work." He secured the reins to a rock projection. "Raise them, train them, sell them. Good horses are worth their weight in gold out here." "Is that how you made your fortune, horses?" He glanced at her, perhaps surprised by her curiosity. "Partly also cattle, land deals, lucky strikes here and there. Lucky enough to waste $1,000 on a poker game." His expression hardened slightly. "I don't consider it a waste." "Then what do you consider it?" Before he could answer, a fierce gust of wind tore the duster from his hands. Without hesitation, he moved closer to Clara, using his own body to shield her. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, smell the leather and sweat and something uniquely his. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why did you do it? You don't know me. You could have had any woman you wanted. Someone willing, someone who chose you." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible above the storm. "You reminded me of someone." "Who?" "Someone I couldn't save." The raw pain in those 4 words made Clara's anger falter. She studied his profile in the dim light, seeing new lines around his eyes, a weariness that spoke of old grief. "Your wife," she guessed. "Fiancée, Catherine. She died 5 years ago." "How?" "Fever took her, 3 days before our wedding." He laughed bitterly. "I had all the money in the world, but couldn't buy the medicine that might have saved her. Couldn't buy more time." Clara felt an unexpected twist of sympathy. "I'm sorry." "So, when I saw you standing there in that saloon, looking like you'd rather die than be sold like cattle." He shook his head. "I couldn't watch it happen again. Couldn't watch another woman be destroyed by circumstances beyond her control." "So you bought me instead." "I got you out of there," he corrected. "What happens next is up to you." Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean I didn't buy you to own you. Miss Mayfield, I bought you to free you." She stared at him, not comprehending. "But you paid..." Consider it a loan. If that sits better with you, work at my ranch, earn your keep, pay it back if you want, or don't. Save enough to start fresh somewhere else. Your choice. You'd let me leave. I'm not your father. I don't own you. Whatever those men back there think. Clara felt something crack inside her chest, a wall she'd built around her heart beginning to crumble. Why would you do that? Because everyone deserves a choice. Catherine never had one. The fever took that away. But you're alive. You're strong. You deserve better than what that town had planned for you. The storm continued to rage outside, but in their small shelter, something had shifted. Clara found herself seeing Silas differently, not as her captor, but as a man carrying his own scars, trying to prevent others from suffering as he had. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Don't say anything, just survive. That's all any of us can do out here. They sat in companionable silence as the storm gradually exhausted itself. The wind died down, the dust settled, and late afternoon sun broke through the dissipating clouds. Silas stood first, surveying the damage. Their clothes were coated in dust, the horse's coat dulled to gray. He pulled out the canteen and offered it to Clara. Rinse your mouth first, then drink slow. She did as instructed, grateful for the cool water. As she handed back the canteen, their fingers brushed, and she didn't immediately pull away. Thank you, she said quietly, for shielding me. He nodded, already turning to check on the horse. We should move. Still got ground to cover before dark. As they prepared to leave their shelter, Clara couldn't help but ask, Do I really remind you of Catherine? Silas paused in adjusting the saddle. No, he said finally. You're nothing like her. She was gentle, soft, never would have survived what you have. He turned to face her. You've got steel in you. Clara Mayfield, don't let anyone tell you different. It was the first time he'd used her given name. Something warm unfurled in Clara's chest. A feeling she didn't quite recognize. Not love, it was far too soon for that. But perhaps hope, trust. They mounted the horse again, but this time, Clara didn't hold herself so rigid. When Silas's arm came around her to hold the reins, she allowed herself to lean back slightly, just enough to feel supported. The landscape had been transformed by the storm. Familiar landmarks were obscured, the trail partially erased. But Silas navigated with confidence, pointing out markers as they rode. That's Devil's Thumb. He indicated a distinctive rock formation. Means we're about 10 miles from the ranch. See the way the light hits it? Looks like it's pointing the way home. Home. The word sat strangely in Clara's mind. She'd never really had one. Not since her mother died. Just temporary shelters. Places to sleep between her father's gambling binges. Tell me about your ranch, she said, surprising herself with the request. 2,000 acres of good grazing land, 100 head of cattle, 30 horses. Got a crew of 8 men, good workers all. Main house isn't much to look at, but it's solid, built to last. And I'd be doing what exactly? Whatever needs doing. Cooking, if you've a mind to. Keeping house, helping with the horses, if you want to learn. Like I said, your choice. Choice. There was that word again. Clara had so rarely had any that she wasn't sure what to do with it. The sun was setting properly now, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the dust still gritty between her teeth, Clara found herself appreciating the beauty of it. It's something, isn't it? Silas said, following her gaze. Every sunset out here is different, never gets old. I've never seen anything like it, Clara admitted. In town, the buildings block most of the sky. You'll see plenty more at the ranch. Nothing but open sky for miles. They rode on as darkness gathered, the first stars appearing overhead. Clara found herself relaxing more with each mile. The steady rhythm of the horse and Silas's solid presence behind her creating an unexpected sense of safety. Almost there, he said eventually. "See those lights? That's the ranch." Clara peered ahead, making out the distant glow of lanterns. Her new life waited there, uncertain but full of possibility. For the first time since her father had dragged her into that saloon, she felt something other than dread about her future. "Silas," she said softly. I'm glad it was you. Who won? I mean, if it had to be someone." He was quiet for a moment. "So am I, Miss Mayfield. So am I." As they drew closer to the ranch, Clara could make out the shapes of buildings, corral fences, and the silhouettes of horses. It looked substantial, permanent, everything her life had never been. Whatever tomorrow brought, whatever challenges awaited, she would face them. Not as property, not as a prize, but as a woman with choices. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but perhaps it was the one she needed. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and fresh, and Clara Mayfield, for the first time in years, breathed freely. The Thornton Ranch sprawled beneath the starlit sky like a small town unto itself. As they rode through the main gate, Clara counted several buildings: a 2-story main house, a bunkhouse, barn, smokehouse, and various sheds. Lantern lights spilled from the bunkhouse windows, and she could hear the distant sound of men's laughter. "Home," Silas said simply, guiding the horse toward the main house. A figure emerged from the shadows of the porch, an older Mexican woman with steel-gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her dark eyes took in Clara with shrewd assessment. "Patron," she said to Silas, her voice carrying a note of surprise. "We did not expect you back so soon." Plans changed. "Rosa." Silas dismounted and helped Clara down. "This is Miss Clara Mayfield. She'll be staying with us. Clara, this is Rosa Martinez. She keeps this place from falling apart." Rosa's eyebrows rose slightly, but she merely nodded. "Señorita," she said coolly, "I will prepare a room." "Thank you." Silas turned to Clara. "Rosa will show you where you can wash up and rest. We'll talk more in the morning." Clara felt dismissed, but she was too exhausted to care. She followed Rosa into the house, aware of the older woman's disapproving silence. The interior was simple but clean, heavy wooden furniture, whitewashed walls, a massive stone fireplace. "This way," Rosa said, leading her up a narrow staircase. "You will have the blue room." The blue room turned out to be small but comfortable, with a brass bed, washstand, and wooden wardrobe. Blue gingham curtains framed the single window. Rosa set down a pitcher of water and fresh towels. "I will bring food," she said, then paused at the door. "The men, they will talk about why you are here." "I imagine they will," Clara replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "Señor Thornton is a good man," Rosa continued, her tone softening slightly. "But this ranch, it is no place for games or foolishness." "I'm not here for games." Rosa studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "We shall see." After Rosa left, Clara washed the trail dust from her face and hands, changed into her spare dress, and sat on the edge of the bed. Through the window, she could see the ranch stretching into darkness, could hear horses nickering in the corrals. This was her new world, for better or worse. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Rosa had returned with a tray of food beef stew, cornbread, and hot coffee. The aroma made Clara's stomach growl. "Thank you," Clara said, meaning it. "Eat," Rosa commanded. "You are too thin. Men here work hard, need proper food. You will learn." Clara ate while Rosa bustled about, hanging Clara's dusty clothes and checking the wash basin. The older woman's presence was oddly comforting, despite her initial coldness. "How long have you worked here?" Clara asked between bites. 15 years, since my husband died." Rosa's face softened with memory. "Señor Thornton gave me work when no one else would hire a Mexican widow. I do not forget such kindness. He seems different from most men. Rosa snorted. He is still a man, with a man's weaknesses, but yes, he is different, since Senorita Catherine died. She trailed off, shaking her head. He mentioned her. Did he? Rosa seemed surprised. He speaks of her to no one. Perhaps she studied Clara with renewed interest. Perhaps things change. The next morning came too soon. Clara woke to the sound of roosters and the smell of bacon. She dressed quickly and made her way downstairs, where she found the kitchen already bustling with activity. Rosa stood at the massive stove, managing multiple skillets with practiced ease. Good, you are awake, Rosa said without turning. The men eat at sunrise. Help me serve. Clara found herself carrying platters of food to a long table where 8 ranch hands sat waiting. The conversation died as she entered. 8 pairs of eyes followed her every movement, some curious, some suspicious, some openly appreciative. Well, well, drawled a young cowboy with sandy hair. What have we here? Mind your manners, Tom, warned an older man with graying whiskers. That's enough. Just being friendly, Bill? Tom protested, his grin suggesting otherwise. Clara set down the platters without comment and returned to the kitchen. She could hear the whispers starting before she even cleared the door. That's her, the one from town. Heard the boss won her in a card game. Must have cost a pretty penny. Virgin bride. They're saying bought and paid for. Clara's cheeks burned, but she kept her head high as she continued serving. Let them talk. She'd endured worse. Silas entered as she was pouring coffee. The men immediately straightened, their whispers dying. Morning, boys, he said, taking his seat at the head of the table. His eyes found Clara briefly. Miss Mayfield will be working here now. I expect you to treat her with respect. Any man who doesn't will answer to me. Clear. A chorus of, yes, boss, filled the room. Good. Now, Bill, how's that mare doing? The talk turned to ranch business: sick cattle, broken fences, horses needing breaking. Clara listened while she worked, beginning to understand the complexity of running such an operation. These men spoke of drought and disease, of market prices and predators, of the constant battle against the land itself. After breakfast, as the men filed out to begin their work, Silas lingered. How was your night? He asked. Fine. Rosa's been kind. She's good people. Listen to her. She'll teach you what you need to know. He paused, seeming to weigh his words. About the men. I can handle their talk. It's not just talk I'm worried about. Some of them. Just be careful. Stay close to the house unless I'm with you. Clara bristled. I thought you said I wasn't a prisoner here. You're not, but you're also a young woman on a ranch full of men who haven't seen anything prettier than cattle in months. I'm trying to protect you. I can protect myself. Like you protected yourself from your father. The words were harsh, but his tone was gentle. This isn't about pride, Clara. It's about survival. She wanted to argue, but she saw the wisdom in his words. Fine, I'll be careful. The days fell into a rhythm. Clara woke before dawn to help Rosa with breakfast, then spent her mornings learning the household routines: laundry, mending, cleaning. Afternoons were for baking, preparing supper, tending the vegetable garden. The work was hard but satisfying. For the first time in her life, Clara felt useful, needed. Rosa proved a stern but fair teacher, gradually warming to her new pupil. You work hard. Rosa observed one afternoon as they kneaded bread together. This is good. Senor Thornton notices such things. Does he? Clara tried to sound casual. Rosa smiled knowingly. He watches you when he thinks no one sees. At dinner, from the porch, his eyes follow you. Clara's hands stilled. I'm just another employee. If you believe that, you are not as smart as I thought. But Silas kept his distance. speaking to her only when necessary. He was gone most days, working alongside his men, returning dusty and exhausted. Clara found herself watching for him, noting the way he moved, the way the other men deferred to him without fear. The ranch hands gradually accepted her presence, though Tom continued to make suggestive comments when Silas wasn't around. Bill, the foreman, proved an unexpected ally, often appearing when Tom got too bold. "Don't mind the boy," Bill told her one evening. "He's young and stupid, thinks every woman should fall at his feet." "I've known plenty like him," Clara replied. "I reckon you have." Bill studied her thoughtfully. "You're not what we expected." "What did you expect?" "Some painted saloon girl, I suppose, or a weeping miss who'd faint at the sight of blood." He grinned. "Instead, we got you helping Doc Williams birth a calf yesterday." Clara smiled at the memory. When one of the cows had gone into difficult labor, she hadn't hesitated to help, despite the mess and struggle. "My mother kept chickens," she said. "I've seen birth before." Still, not many town ladies would have rolled up their sleeves like that. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. Riders were approaching fast, their horses lathered with sweat. Silas emerged from the barn, rifle in hand. "Rustlers hit the Hendricks place," one of the riders gasped. "Took 30 head, shot old Jim in the leg." The ranch transformed instantly. Men grabbed weapons, saddled fresh horses. Silas barked orders with military precision. "Tom, ride to town, get the sheriff. Bill, take 4 men, scout the north pasture. They might try for our herd next." "I'm coming with you," another rancher said. "No, Pete, stay with your family." Silas's eyes found Clara watching from the porch. Something passed across his face, concern. "Fear. Rosa, get medical supplies ready. They'll bring Jim here." The next hours were chaos. Wounded men arrived, including Jim Hendricks, bleeding from a leg wound. Clara found herself assisting as Rosa cleaned and bandaged injuries, her squeamishness forgotten in the face of need. "Hold him still," Rosa commanded as Jim thrashed in pain. "The bullet must come out." Clara gripped the man's shoulders while Rosa worked. Jim's screams echoed through the house, but she didn't let go. When it was over, Jim had passed out, but the bullet was removed, the wound cleaned and bound. "You did well," Rosa said, washing blood from her hands. Not many could stomach that. Clara looked at her own blood-stained hands, surprised to find them steady. Is he going to be all right? If infection doesn't set in, yes. Silas returned near midnight, dusty and grim. His shirt was torn, a graze along his cheek suggesting how close he'd come to worse. "Did you catch them?" Rosa asked. "Some, others got away." He noticed Clara and frowned. "You should be resting." "I was helping." "I can see that." His voice softened. "Thank you. Jim's lucky you were here." Their eyes met and held. Clara felt that strange warmth again, stronger now. She could see the exhaustion in his face, the weight of responsibility he carried. "You're hurt," she said, indicating his cheek. "It's nothing." "Sit," Rosa commanded. "Both of you are too stubborn." Silas submitted to Rosa's ministrations while Clara heated water for coffee. The kitchen felt strangely intimate with just the 3 of them, the violence of the day creating an unexpected bond. "This happen often?" Clara asked. "Rustlers, I mean—" "Often enough," Silas replied. "Territory's growing, laws spread thin. Men think they can take what they want, including women." He looked up sharply. "That's different." "Is it?" "Yes." His voice was firm. "What happened to you? That was wrong. What happened today was wrong. I try to make it right when I can." Clara studied him, this complex man who bought women at poker games and risked his life for neighbors' cattle. "You can't save everyone." "No," he agreed quietly. "But I can try." Later, as Clara prepared for bed, she found herself thinking about the day's events. She'd seen the harsh reality of ranch life, the violence, the struggle, the thin line between civilization and chaos. Yet she'd also seen community, men risking themselves for others, women like Rosa holding everything together with skill and strength. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." It was Silas, still wearing his dusty clothes. "I wanted to check. Today was difficult. If you want to leave." "Do you want me to leave?" "No." The word came quickly, surprising them both. "No, the men respect you now. What you did today, helping Jim, Tom even shut his mouth for once." Clara smiled slightly. "Small miracles." "Clara," he seemed to struggle with words. "This life, it's not easy. It's dangerous and hard and real," she interrupted. "More real than anything I've known." She met his eyes. "I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of danger. I've been afraid my whole life. I'm tired of it." He nodded slowly. "Then you'll stay." "For now." "For now," he repeated. Something flickered in his eyes, disappointment, relief. "That's good. The ranch Rosa needs the help." "Just Rosa." He held her gaze for a long moment. "No, not just Rosa." After he left, Clara stood at her window, looking out at the ranch bathed in moonlight. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes howled. The sound should have frightened her, but instead, she found it oddly comforting. Wild things calling to each other across the darkness, surviving despite everything. She thought of Silas's words, "For now." It wasn't a promise of forever, wasn't a declaration of anything beyond the present moment, but it was enough. For now, she had a place, a purpose, people who needed her skills. For now, she was no longer just the girl whose father sold her. She was Clara Mayfield, who helped birth calves and held steady while bullets were dug from flesh, who faced down rustlers' violence without running. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be more Toms to deal with, more suspicious looks, more whispers about the bought bride. But there would also be Rosa's teaching, Bill's gruff kindness, and Silas's complicated protection. She was building something here, though she couldn't name it yet. Not quite a home, not quite a family, but something vital and real, something worth fighting for. The coyotes called again, and Clara smiled. Wild things, indeed. Perhaps that's what it took to survive out here, a touch of wildness, a refusal to be tamed or broken. She would stay, for now. And maybe, just maybe, for now would become forever. The autumn nights grew cooler, and Clara found herself drawn to the main room after supper, where a fire always crackled in the great stone hearth. Usually, she retired early to avoid the ranch hands who sometimes gathered there to play cards and share whiskey. But this night was different. The men were all in town for the monthly cattle auction, leaving only her, Rosa, and Silas at the ranch. Rosa had retired early with a headache, leaving Clara alone with her mending by the fire. She was so focused on patching a torn shirt that she didn't hear Silas enter until he spoke. "You don't have to hide away, you know." Clara startled, pricking her finger with the needle. "I wasn't hiding." "No." He moved to the cabinet and poured himself a whiskey. "Every other night you disappear the moment dishes are done." "I thought you'd appreciate the privacy." "Privacy?" He gave a short laugh. "There's no privacy on a ranch, just the illusion of it." Clara watched as he settled into the leather chair across from her, noting the weariness in his movements. He'd been up before dawn, working with a particularly difficult stallion all day. "Rough day?" she asked. "That black devil nearly took my head off twice." He sipped his whiskey. "But he'll make a fine horse once he's properly broken. Must you break them seems cruel, forcing them to surrender their spirit." Silas studied her over his glass. "Not break, never break. That ruins a horse. You teach them to channel their spirit, to work with you instead of against you. There's a difference." "Is there Would you rather I left him wild, he'd die come winter, or be shot for raiding someone's mares? His eyes held hers. Sometimes accepting guidance is what keeps us alive. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks, understanding the parallel he was drawing. I suppose you think I need breaking too? No, his voice was quiet but firm. You need healing. Different thing entirely. They fell silent, the fire popping and settling. Clara returned to her mending, hyper-aware of his presence, the way the firelight played across his features. She'd been at the ranch nearly 3 months now, and these moments alone with him were still rare, still charged with unspoken things. Play something, she said suddenly, nodding toward the banjo hanging on the wall. Rosa mentioned you play. Rosa talks too much. Please. He hesitated, then rose and took down the instrument. Haven't played in months. Might sound like a dying cat. But when his fingers found the strings, the melody that emerged was haunting and beautiful. Clara recognized it as an old folk tune her mother used to hum, though Silas played it slower, sadder. My grandfather taught me, he said, fingers moving with practiced ease. Brought this banjo all the way from Virginia. Said music was what separated men from beasts. What do you think separates them? Choice, he said without hesitation. Beasts act on instinct. Men can choose to be better than their nature. Or worse. That too. He transitioned into another song, this one livelier. Clara found her foot tapping along despite herself. When he finished, she applauded softly. You're good. Why did you stop playing? Catherine loved music. After she... He shrugged. Didn't seem much point. Clara bit her lip, then made a decision. Will you teach me? I always wanted to learn an instrument. Surprise flickered across his face. You want to learn banjo? Unless you think I'm too stupid for it. I think nothing of the sort. He rose and moved to sit beside her on the small sofa. Here, hold it like this. He placed the banjo in her hands, adjusting her grip. Clara was acutely aware of his nearness, the warmth of his hands over hers as he positioned her fingers on the frets. She could smell whiskey and leather, the faint scent of the sage soap Rosa made. Press here, he instructed, his breath warm against her ear. Now strum with your right hand. The sound that emerged was discordant, making them both wince. Maybe I am too stupid, Clara muttered. Try again. Learning takes time. His patience surprised her. For the next hour, he guided her through basic chords, never criticizing when she fumbled, only offering gentle corrections. Gradually, she began to produce actual notes rather than noise. There, he said when she managed a simple progression. You're getting it. Clara beamed, proud of her small accomplishment. When she looked up, she found him watching her with an expression she'd never seen before, soft, almost vulnerable. What? She asked. You smile so rarely. It's nice to see. The air between them shifted, became charged. Clara was suddenly very aware that his hand still rested over hers on the banjo neck. Without thinking, she turned her palm up, lacing their fingers together. Silas, he pulled back as if burned. It's late. You should get some rest. The rejection stung. Did I do something wrong? No. He stood, running a hand through his hair. I shouldn't. This isn't... Isn't what? Clara set the banjo aside, rising to face him. Isn't proper, since when has anything about our situation been proper? That's exactly why I need to be careful. His jaw was tight. You're under my protection. I won't take advantage. You're not taking advantage. I'm choosing. Are you... He whirled on her, eyes blazing. Or are you just grateful, confused you've been through hell? Clara, I won't add to that. You think I don't know my own mind. I think you're 18 years old and trying to survive. I think you do whatever you believe necessary to stay safe. The accusation hit like a slap. Is that really what you think of me? That I'd trade my body for security? God, no! He gripped the mantle, knuckles white. That's what I'm trying to prevent. Don't you see, if we... How would you ever know it was real? How would you know you had a choice? Clara stared at him, understanding dawning. This isn't about me at all. It's about Catherine. He went still. You couldn't save her, so now you're trying to save me. But I'm not her. Silas, I'm not dying of fever. I'm right here, alive, making my own choices. Clara. No. She moved closer, saw him tense. You want to know what I choose? I choose to stay here, even though I could leave. I choose to work beside Rosa, even though my hands bleed from lie. I choose to face down Tom's rudeness and the town's gossip. And right now, I choose this. She reached up, her fingers barely grazing his cheek where the rustler's bullet had left a faint scar. He caught her wrist, but didn't push her away. You don't know what you're asking, he said roughly. Then tell me. For a moment, she thought he would. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, and his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then, slowly, carefully, he guided her hand down, releasing her. Ask me again when you've been here a year, he said quietly. When you've seen a full turn of seasons, when the novelty is worn off and you know what this life really means. If you still want this, then we'll talk. A year? You've been here 3 months. Clara, that's not enough time to know anything for certain. She wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. This wasn't rejection. She realized it was restraint, protection, even though not the kind that chafed at her independence. And if I change my mind, if I decide to leave, then I'll give you money for passage anywhere you want to go. No questions, no arguments. You'd let me walk away. I told you the first day I didn't buy you to own you. That hasn't changed. Clara studied him, this complicated man who held himself back with iron control. All right, a year, but I have conditions. His eyebrows rose. Conditions? You teach me to ride properly and to shoot. If I'm staying here, I want to be useful beyond the kitchen. Rosa won't like that. Rosa doesn't have to like it. Do we have a deal? He extended his hand, and she shook it firmly. His grip was warm, calloused, careful. Deal, but we start tomorrow, and I won't go easy on you. I wouldn't expect you to. They stood there, hands clasped perhaps a moment longer than necessary. Then Silas stepped back, collecting his whiskey glass. Get some sleep. Dawn comes early. Clara watched him go, then touched her wrist where he'd held it. The skin still tingled from his touch. She looked at the banjo, at the fire dying to embers, at this room where something significant had shifted between them. A year. She could wait a year, and in that time, she'd prove to him and to herself that what she felt wasn't gratitude or confusion or desperation. It was something deeper, something that had taken root despite the rocky soil of their beginning. She banked the fire and headed upstairs. Pausing at her window to look out at the ranch, moonlight silvered the corrals where tomorrow she'd learn to ride. In the distance, coyotes sang their wild songs. Fingers tracing fire down her body, she whispered to herself, remembering the title of her story. Tonight, he'd barely touched her, yet she felt burned all the same. What would happen when that restraint finally broke? Only time would tell, but Clara was patient. She'd survived her father's cruelty, the humiliation of being sold, the harsh judgment of strangers. She could survive Silas Thornton's noble resistance. And maybe, just maybe, she could teach him that not all broken things needed saving. Some just needed the chance to save themselves. The next morning came too soon, with Silas pounding on her door before the rooster crowed. Rise and shine. Greenhorn, you wanted to learn time's wasting. Clara groaned but dragged herself from bed. This was what she'd asked for. After all, when she emerged, dressed in borrowed trousers and boots. Silas was waiting with 2 horses saddled. "First lesson," he said without preamble. "Everything on a ranch can hurt you if you're careless. Horses, cattle, weather, even the land itself. Respect that, or you won't last long." "Trying to scare me off already?" "Trying to keep you alive." His expression was serious. "Now, let's see what you can do." What followed was the most exhausting morning of Clara's life. Silas was a demanding teacher, correcting her posture, her grip, her balance. When she finally managed to stay mounted through a trot without bouncing like a sack of potatoes, he merely nodded. "Better. Tomorrow we'll work on actually controlling the horse." "I thought I was controlling her." "You were hanging on. There's a difference." But she caught the hint of a smile as he said it. By the time Rosa rang the breakfast bell, Clara was sore, dusty, and oddly exhilarated. She'd done it. She'd ridden a horse badly, but still. "You look pleased with yourself," Rosa observed as Clara washed up at the pump. "I didn't fall off." "A miracle." Rosa's tone was dry, but her eyes were warm. "Perhaps there's hope for you yet, city girl." "I'm not a city girl." "No," Rosa agreed, watching as Clara's eyes tracked Silas across the yard. "Perhaps you're not." That night, despite her exhaustion, Clara found herself back in the main room with her mending, when Silas appeared with his banjo. She smiled. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked. He nodded, settling into what was becoming his chair. "Dawn, don't be late." As he began to play, Clara let the music wash over her. A year seemed like forever, but she'd fill it with moments like these, learning, growing, becoming the woman she was meant to be. And when that year was up, well, Silas Thornton wouldn't know what hit him. Spring came to Wyoming with violent thunderstorms that shook the ranch house and turned the roads to rivers of mud. Clara had been at Thornton Ranch nearly 6 months now, and the whispers hadn't stopped. If anything, they'd grown louder. It started when she accompanied Rosa to town for supplies. The moment they entered Henderson's general store, conversations halted. Women clutched their shopping baskets tighter. Men's eyes followed her with knowing looks. "That's her, Mrs." Henderson whispered to her customer, not bothering to lower her voice much. "The one Silas Thornton bought. Virgin bride, they say, though who knows if that's still true after all these months." Clara kept her head high, focusing on the list Rosa had given her. 4 pounds of flour, salt, coffee, thread. Simple things. Normal things that any ranch woman might buy. "Shameful," another woman murmured. "Living in sin out there, bold as brass." "Now, Martha," her companion replied, "we don't know for certain they're... Well, don't we, a young woman like that, alone with a man? What else could it be?" Clara's hands trembled as she placed items on the counter. "Mr." Henderson took her money without meeting her eyes, as if her shame might be contagious. Outside, Rosa patted her arm. "Pay them no mind. Mija, small minds make big stories." But the damage was done. When they returned to the ranch, Clara retreated to her room, ignoring Silas's call for her afternoon riding lesson. She sat on her bed, staring at her hands, wondering if this would be her life forever marked, forever whispered about. A knock interrupted her brooding. "Clara," Silas's voice, concerned. "Rosa said you're not feeling well." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." The door opened, and he stood in the threshold, not entering. "What happened in town?" "Nothing new, just reminders of what everyone thinks I am." His jaw tightened. "What who thinks?" "Everyone. Mrs. Henderson, the church ladies. Probably the whole territory by now." She laughed bitterly. "The virgin bride who was sold, though they seem certain I'm not virgin anymore, living here with you." "Clara." "It's true, isn't it? My reputation is ruined. No decent man will ever want me now. I'm marked goods." Silas crossed the room in 2 strides, kneeling before her so their eyes were level. Listen to me. You are not goods. You are not marked or ruined or any other damn thing those hypocrites say. You're the bravest woman I know. Brave, tears threatened. I'm hiding in my room because of gossip. You're human, and you've endured more than most could bear. His hands covered hers. To hell with what they think. Easy for you to say. You're a man. Your reputation. My reputation, he laughed harshly. You think they don't talk about me? The man who bought a woman who keeps her at his ranch for God knows what purpose. I'm no saint in their eyes either. Clara hadn't considered that. I'm sorry. I didn't think... Don't apologize. Just don't let them win. Don't let their small-mindedness drive you away. Is that what you're worried about? That I'll leave? He was quiet for a long moment. Yes, he admitted finally. The thought of you leaving, I'm not ready for that. Their eyes met, and Clara felt that familiar fire between them. 6 months of careful distance, of maintained boundaries. But the attraction hadn't dimmed. If anything, it had grown stronger. The moment was shattered by Tom's voice from downstairs. Boss, we got trouble. Silas was on his feet instantly. Through the window. Clara could see riders approaching. Her stomach dropped as she recognized the lead figure. Her father, Samuel Mayfield, looking worse for wear but unmistakably determined. Stay here, Silas ordered, but Clara followed him downstairs anyway. Samuel had dismounted in the yard, flanked by 3 rough-looking men Clara didn't recognize. Ranch hands gathered, hands hovering near their weapons. Thornton, Samuel called out, swaying slightly. I've come for my daughter. She's not yours to come for, Silas replied evenly. The hell she isn't. She's my blood, my kin. You got no right. I've got a bill of sale that says otherwise. Silas's voice was deadly quiet. You sold her. Remember fair and square. Witnessed by half the town. That weren't legal, can't sell a person like property. I talked to a lawyer in Cheyenne. He says I got rights. Clara stepped forward, despite Silas's warning gesture. What do you want, Pa? Samuel's eyes lit up with false warmth. There's my girl Clara. Honey, I've come to take you home. Made a mistake. See, but I can fix it. How much? Clara asked flatly. What? How much are they paying you to get me back? These men with you, they're not lawyers. They're hired guns. Someone's offered you money for me. Haven't they? Samuel's face flushed. Now, Clara. Who is it, Morrison? Someone else from the poker game. One of the men with Samuel shifted impatiently. This is taking too long. Mayfield, you said she'd come willing. She will, Samuel insisted. Clara, be sensible. Mr. Morrison's a respectable businessman. He's willing to marry you proper, give you a real home. Morrison, Clara felt sick. The man with rotten teeth who bit on me like cattle. He's got money, influence, better than living in sin with this. Silas moved so fast Clara barely saw it. Suddenly Samuel was on the ground, blood streaming from his nose. Watch your tongue, Silas said quietly. That's your warning. Samuel scrambled to his feet, his companions reaching for their guns. The ranch hands responded in kind, the yard bristling with weapons. You'll pay for that, Samuel snarled. You think you're so high and mighty, I know what you do with her at night. Everyone knows. My innocent daughter. Innocent? Clara's laugh was sharp. When have you ever cared about my innocence? When you hit me, when you drank away our food money, when you sold me to pay your debts? I'm your father. No. Clara's voice rang across the yard. A father protects his daughter. A father doesn't sell her to the highest bidder. You're nothing to me. Samuel's face contorted. You little witch. Just like your mother, thinking you're too good. Don't. Silas's gun was in his hand, pointed at Samuel's chest. Don't say another word about her mother, or her... Get off my land, now! "This ain't over." One of the hired guns said, "Mr. Morrison paid good money for us to bring the girl back. We don't leave empty-handed." "Then you don't leave at all," Bill said, his rifle trained on the speaker. The other ranch hands had formed a circle, weapons ready. The tension stretched taut. Clara could hear her heart pounding, could see fingers tightening on triggers. One wrong move and the yard would become a battlefield. Then Rosa emerged from the house, carrying the shotgun she used for coyotes. "Enough," she said firmly. "You want the girl fight for her proper. Tomorrow, noon, single combat, champions chosen. Winner decides her fate." "Rosa," Silas started. "It's the old way," Rosa continued. "Legal in the territory. Settles disputes without wholesale slaughter. Unless you're cowards." The hired guns exchanged looks. Their leader nodded slowly. "Morrison won't like it, but fine. Single combat. Your man against ours." "I'll fight," Silas said immediately. "No." Clara grabbed his arm. "You can't risk—" "It's decided," the gunman said. "Tomorrow, noon, at the Old Oak. We'll camp outside your property line tonight. Try anything funny, and we come in shooting." They mounted and rode off, Samuel casting one last venomous look at his daughter. As soon as they were gone, arguments erupted. "Boss, this is madness," Bill protested. "Fighting for her like she's a prize." "It's that or a bloodbath," Silas replied grimly. "At least this way. It's just me at risk." "I won't have it," Clara said fiercely. "I won't have you fighting over me like I'm property to be won." "You got a better idea?" Silas asked. "Because they're not leaving without you or blood. Possibly both." "I could go with them," she said quietly. The silence was deafening. "No," Silas's voice was flat. "Absolutely not. If it prevents bloodshed—" "I said no." He gripped her shoulders. "You know what Morrison wants, what he'll do. I won't let that happen." "Let," Clara's temper flared. "You don't let me do anything. I make my own choices. Remember—" "Not this one." "Why? Because you paid for me, because I'm yours." "Because I—" He stopped, jaw working. "Because I protect what matters to me. And you matter, Clara, more than you know." The ranch hands dispersed, giving them privacy. Rosa lingered, her dark eyes moving between them. "He's right, Mija," she said softly. "Morrison is a bad man. What'd he do to you? Fighting is better." "I don't want anyone fighting for me," Clara said, but her voice lacked conviction. The thought of Morrison's hands on her, his rotten breath, his cruel smile. "Then fight for yourself," Rosa suggested. "The old way allows for champions. You could choose to represent yourself." "Rosa," Silas protested. "She's been training," Rosa pointed out. "You taught her to shoot, to ride. Why not give her the choice?" Clara looked between them, Silas, protective and fierce, Rosa, practical and wise. "What would I be fighting, guns, knives?" "Usually fists," Rosa said. "First to yield or fall unconscious loses." "I can't fight a man with fists. I'm not strong enough." "Then I fight," Silas said firmly. "It's decided." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She slipped downstairs to find Silas cleaning his guns by lamplight. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked without looking up. "How can you be so calm?" "I'm not." He set down the revolver he'd been cleaning. "I'm terrified." "Then why—" "Because losing you would be worse than dying." The words hung between them, raw and honest. Clara moved closer, settling beside him on the bench. "You could have had me any time these past 6 months. Why hold back if I matter so much?" "Because you deserve better than a man who can't tell the difference between love and ownership." He met her eyes. "Catherine, I loved her, but I also tried to control her, keep her safe, protected. In the end, I couldn't save her from a fever. All my money, all my power, useless. So you've kept me at arm's length. I've tried to let you be free, to choose your own path. But now, he laughed bitterly, now I'm going to fight for you anyway. Some lessons I never learn. Clara took his hand. There's a difference. You're not fighting to own me. You're fighting to keep me free from Morrison. Is there a difference in the end? I'm still deciding your fate through violence. No, Clara said firmly. You're giving me the chance to choose. If you lose tomorrow, God forbid, but if you do, I'll run. I'll never let Morrison touch me. But if you win, I choose to stay. Not because you won me, but because this is my home now. He squeezed her hand. You mean that? Every word. She hesitated, then leaned against his shoulder. I'm scared too. Of the fight. Of losing you. Of losing this life I've built. Of going back to being that helpless girl in the saloon. You were never helpless, Silas said softly. Even then, you had steel in you. I saw it that first day. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, drawing strength from each other. Tomorrow would bring violence, possibly death. But tonight, they had this quiet intimacy, shared fear, unspoken love. Whatever happens, Clara said finally, I want you to know, these 6 months have been the best of my life. You gave me freedom, purpose, a home. You gave me myself back. Silas turned to face her fully. In the lamplight, his eyes were soft, vulnerable. Clara, Shh. She pressed a finger to his lips. Say it after you win. When we both know it's real, not just fear talking. He nodded, catching her hand and pressing it to his cheek. After, he agreed. Tomorrow would come soon enough, bringing with it violence and resolution. But for now, they had this moment, two souls finding comfort in each other's presence, preparing for a battle that would determine their future. The virgin bride who was sold would not be sold again, whatever the outcome. Clara Mayfield would remain free to choose, to love, to forge her own destiny in this wild, unforgiving land. The fight was just beginning. The old oak stood like a sentinel in the meadow, its gnarled branches having witnessed decades of territorial disputes. By noon, two camps had formed on either side, Thornton ranch hands to the east, Morrison's hired guns to the west. The spring sun beat down mercilessly, as if nature itself demanded blood. Clara stood with Rosa, her stomach churning. Silas was checking his weapons one final time, his face a mask of calm she knew was false. Across the field, Morrison himself had arrived, his expensive suit out of place in the rugged landscape. Beside him, a mountain of a man rolled his shoulders, Morrison's champion, a bare-knuckle fighter from the mining camps. Bruiser Jake, Bill muttered. Heard he killed a man in Denver with his bare hands. Silas can take him, Tom said, but his usual cockiness was absent. Clara wanted to scream at the absurdity of it all, two men beating each other bloody to determine her fate. But she held her tongue, knowing protest would only distract Silas now. Samuel Mayfield skulked at the edge of Morrison's group, avoiding his daughter's gaze. Clara felt only disgust for him now, this shell of a man who'd sold her twice over. You sure about this, Thornton? Morrison called out, his reedy voice carrying across the distance. Not too late to hand over the girl peacefully. Save yourself a beating. Only beating today will be yours, Silas replied evenly. Morrison's laugh was ugly. We'll see. Jake here's never lost a fight. When he's done with you, I'll take good care of your little bride. Real good care. Clara's hands clenched into fists. Rosa placed a steadying hand on her arm. An old judge from town had been brought to officiate, ensuring the fight's legality. He stepped forward, voice gravelly with age. Rules are simple. No weapons, no biting, no gouging eyes. Fight ends when one man yields or can't continue. Winner's claim on the woman stands legal and binding. Both parties agree." "Agreed," Morrison said smugly. "Agreed." Silas confirmed. "Then let's begin." The two champions moved to the center, circling each other. Jake towered over Silas by half a foot and outweighed him by 50 pounds at least. His fists were like ham hocks, scarred from countless brawls. "Gonna enjoy this," Jake growled. "Been too long since I had a good fight." Silas said nothing, studying his opponent with the same intensity he used when breaking horses. Jake struck first, a haymaker that would have felled an ox. But Silas wasn't there, having ducked and delivered a punishing blow to Jake's ribs. The big man grunted but barely staggered. What followed was brutal. Jake had raw power, each punch capable of ending the fight. But Silas had speed and strategy, dancing away from the worst blows while landing precise strikes. Blood soon flowed from both men. Jake's nose crushed. Silas's lips split. "Come on, boss," Tom shouted. "Show him what Wyoming men are made of." Clara watched in growing horror as the fight intensified. Jake caught Silas with a massive uppercut that sent him sprawling. The Thornton men groaned while Morrison's group cheered. "Stay down," Jake rumbled, looming over Silas. "Save yourself more pain." But Silas rolled aside as Jake's boot stomped where his head had been. He regained his feet, spitting blood. "That all you got?" Silas taunted, though Clara could see he was hurting. Jake roared and charged like a bull. This time, Silas didn't dodge entirely, taking a glancing blow to absorb Jake's momentum and drive his knee into the big man's stomach. Jake doubled over, gasping. The fight turned then. Silas pressed his advantage, targeting Jake's injured middle with surgical precision. The giant's strength meant nothing if he couldn't breathe. Soon, Jake was on the defensive, trying to protect his torso while Silas hammered him from all angles. But Jake hadn't survived the mining camps by folding easily. He weathered the assault and landed a devastating hook to Silas's temple. Silas went down hard, vision swimming. "No!" The word tore from Clara's throat before she could stop it. Silas's eyes found hers across the field. Something passed between them, determination, promise, love unspoken. He pushed himself up on shaking arms. "I yield," Samuel Mayfield suddenly shouted. "I yield my claim. The girl ain't mine to give." Everyone turned to stare at him. Morrison's face went purple with rage. "What are you doing, you fool?" "I can't." Samuel looked at Clara, and for once, she saw genuine remorse. "I can't watch this anymore. She's my daughter, not property. I was wrong. I yield all claim to her." "Doesn't matter," Morrison snarled. "I bought your debt. Your claim she's mine by rights." "Actually," the judge interjected, "if the original seller withdraws his claim, the sale becomes void. Legally speaking." "To hell with legal." Morrison pulled a hidden derringer from his vest. "I paid good money." Several things happened at once. Morrison aimed at Clara. Silas lunged forward despite his injuries. Rosa raised her shotgun. But it was Clara who moved fastest. The months of training, of target practice at dawn, paid off. Her hand found the small pistol Silas had given her, drew, and fired in one smooth motion. Morrison screamed, the derringer flying from his hand as Clara's bullet struck true. He clutched his bleeding hand, falling to his knees. "You little witch, you shot me." "Next one goes in your head," Clara said coldly, keeping the pistol trained on him. "Leave, now, and if you ever come near me or mine again, I'll finish what I started." Jake helped Morrison to his feet, the fight forgotten. The hired guns looked uncertain, but without their employer's money motivating them, they began backing away. "This ain't over," Morrison spat, cradling his ruined hand. "Yes, it is." Silas had moved to stand beside Clara, bloodied but unbowed. "You heard the lady. Get out. Don't come back." The judge cleared his throat. "Given the circumstances, I declare this matter resolved. The young woman is free to choose her own path." Any who dispute this will answer to territorial law. Morrison's group mounted up, Samuel Mayfield trailing after them. He paused, looking back at Clara one last time. "Your mother would be proud," he said quietly. "You're stronger than I ever was." Then they were gone, dust clouds marking their retreat. Clara lowered the pistol with shaking hands. The aftermath hit her all at once. She'd shot a man, defied everyone, claimed her own freedom with gunpowder and lead. "You all right?" Silas asked, gently taking the weapon from her nerveless fingers. I think so." She looked at his battered face. "You're hurt." "I'll heal." He cupped her cheek with one bruised hand. "That was some shooting. You taught me well." "No," he said softly. "That was all your courage, your choice." The ranch hands surrounded them, whooping and celebrating. Even Tom clapped Clara on the back with genuine respect. "Remind me never to make you angry, Miss Clara," he said. That was something to see. Rosa embraced her tightly. "You did well, Mia. You stood tall." Back at the ranch, Clara tended Silas's injuries while he sat stoically in the kitchen. She cleaned cuts, applied salve to bruises, wrapped his ribs where Jake had cracked them. "You could have been killed," she said quietly, securing the last bandage. "Worth the risk." "I'm not worth dying for." He caught her hands. "You're worth living for. There's a difference." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Clara's year wasn't up. She had 6 months left of their agreement, but something had fundamentally shifted today. "I chose," she said suddenly. "When I shot Morrison, when I stood there with that gun, I chose my life. This life. Here." "Clara." "No, let me finish." She met his eyes. "I'm not staying because I have nowhere else to go. I'm not staying out of gratitude or fear or confusion. I'm staying because this is where I belong. Because the work matters. The people matter. Because you matter." "You don't have to decide now," Silas said carefully. "I've been through hell," Clara interrupted. "And I came out the other side. I know my own mind. Silas Thornton, the question is, do you know yours?" He was quiet for a long moment, thumb tracing circles on her wrist. "I've known since the day I bought that banjo down from the wall, maybe before, but I wanted to give you time, give you choices. You gave me both, and I choose you, choose us, if you'll have me. If I'll—" He laughed, wincing as it pulled his injured ribs. "Woman, I just got beaten half to death for you. What do you think?" "I think," Clara said, leaning closer, "that actions speak louder than words, but sometimes words matter too." "Then let me be clear." He framed her face with both hands, heedless of his injuries. "I love you, Clara Mayfield. Not as property, not as someone to save or fix or own. I love you as a partner, an equal. I love your strength and your stubbornness and that crack shot you've become. I love." She silenced him with a kiss, gentle, mindful of his split lip. When they parted, both were breathless. "I love you too," she whispered, beyond sense or reason, despite everything, because of everything. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now," Clara smiled. "Now we build something together. Not you saving me, not me earning my keep. Together." I like the sound of that. That evening, as Clara helped serve supper to the hands, she noticed the change immediately. The men looked at her differently, not as the bought bride or fallen woman, but as someone who'd proven herself, who'd stood her ground and fought for her freedom. "Pass the potatoes, Miss Sharpshooter," Tom said with a grin. "Only if you ask nicely," Clara retorted, earning laughs all around. Later, she and Silas sat on the porch watching the sunset, her head on his shoulder. His proposal, when it came, was characteristically straightforward. "Marry me," he said. "Proper marriage. In the church if you want, or here, under the sky. Your choice. Always giving me choices. Clara mused. Always will. That's what love is. Isn't it choosing each other, again and again? Then I choose yes, Clara said simply. Yes to marriage, yes to partnership, yes to whatever comes next. He slipped a simple silver ring onto her finger. Not fancy, but solid and true. Like him, like them. No more virgin bride. Clara said wryly, What will the gossips say now? That Silas Thornton is the luckiest man in Wyoming, he replied, and they'll be right. As stars emerged in the darkening sky, Clara reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. Sold by her father, bought by a stranger. She'd somehow found freedom in captivity, love in loneliness, strength in struggle. Tomorrow there would be wedding plans and ranch work and the ongoing challenge of building a life in this harsh land. But tonight, she was simply Clara, not property or prize, but a woman who'd claimed her own destiny with courage and a well-aimed bullet. No regrets? Silas asked softly. None, Clara said firmly. You didn't just claim me. Remember, you chose me forever, and I chose you right back. The old oak in the meadow had witnessed violence today, but also transformation, where a bought bride had stood that morning. A free woman now sat, ring on her finger and love in her heart. The fight was over. The real adventure building a life together was just beginning. The smoke had barely cleared when the real work began. Morrison's retreat left the ranch in an uneasy calm, everyone knowing that men like him rarely accepted defeat gracefully. Clara threw herself into the recovery efforts, helping tend not just Silas's wounds but those of several ranch hands who'd been grazed in the confrontation. Hold still, Tom, she commanded, cleaning a bullet furrow along his arm. It's not deep, but it needs proper care. Yes, ma'am, Tom said meekly, all his former swagger gone. Never thought I'd see the day when Miss Clara turned gunfighter. I'm no gunfighter, Clara replied, wrapping his arm. Just a woman who won't be sold again. The following days revealed the true extent of Morrison's spite. First came the cut fences, miles of them, letting cattle scatter across the territory, then poisoned water holes, dead stock, and burned hay stores. Each attack came at night, anonymous and vicious. Coward won't face us direct, Bill spat, surveying the latest damage. Just bleeding us slow. Silas's face was grim as he calculated losses. He's trying to break us financially, force me to sell or abandon the ranch. Over my dead body, Clara said fiercely. That might be his plan too, Silas replied quietly. The attacks escalated. Ranch hands were ambushed on the range, beaten but left alive warnings of worse to come. The territorial sheriff proved useless, claiming insufficient evidence to act against Morrison. Man's got deep pockets, the sheriff explained apologetically. Bought himself a lot of friends, without witnesses willing to testify. So we're on our own, Clara concluded. Always have been out here, Rosa said darkly. The law protects those who can afford it. 3 weeks after the fight at the Oak, the situation reached a breaking point. Clara woke to the acrid smell of smoke and the orange glow of fire dancing on her bedroom walls. Fire! She screamed, racing downstairs. The barn's on fire! The ranch erupted in chaos. Men stumbled from the bunkhouse, forming bucket brigades while others rushed to save the trapped horses. The screams of terrified animals pierced the night. Clara didn't think, just acted, plunging into the smoke-filled barn. She found the prize mare cornered by flames, wild with terror. Easy, girl, Clara crooned, approaching slowly despite the heat searing her lungs. We're getting out of here. She managed to grab the halter, leading the mare through the smoke. They burst into clean air just as part of the roof collapsed behind them. Silas caught her as she stumbled, coughing violently. Are you insane? He shouted over the roar of flames. You could have been killed. So could she. Clara gasped, still clutching the mare's lead. By dawn, the barn was gone. 3 horses had perished, thousands of dollars in feed and equipment destroyed. The men stood in exhausted groups, faces blackened with soot, staring at the smoldering ruins. "Found this," young Eddie said, holding up a burned scrap of fabric. "Looks like a piece of Morrison's fancy coat, caught on the fence." "Now we have evidence," Tom said eagerly. "Evidence that'll disappear the moment we turn it over." Bill countered, "You know how this works." Clara studied the fabric, then looked at the faces around her. Good men, loyal men, pushed to their limits. Something cold and determined settled in her chest. "Then we don't turn it over," she said quietly. "We finish this ourselves." "Clara," Silas started. "No." She faced him squarely. "He burned our barn, killed our horses. Next time it might be the house, or the bunkhouse with men inside." Her voice hardened. "Samuel Mayfield might have sold me, but at least he walked away. Morrison needs to learn the same lesson." "What are you proposing?" Rosa asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "We take the fight to him, tonight, while he thinks we're licking our wounds." "That's vigilante talk," Bill warned. "That's survival talk," Clara corrected. "He wants to play with fire. Let him learn how it feels." A heated debate followed. Some men argued for law and order, others for immediate retaliation. Silas remained silent, watching Clara with an unreadable expression. Finally, he spoke. "Any man who wants to leave, no hard feelings. Collect your pay and go. But if you stay, we do this smart. No killing unless forced. We want Morrison gone, not martyred." In the end, none left. They spent the day planning. Morrison kept his headquarters at a fancy hotel in town, but he also maintained a warehouse where he stored goods for his various enterprises. Information gathered carefully over the weeks revealed guard schedules, weak points, vulnerabilities. "We don't burn it," Silas insisted. "Too much risk of spreading, innocents getting hurt, but we can make sure his goods are redistributed." "To folks he's cheated over the years," Clara added. "The widow Ferguson, who lost her farm to his predatory loans. The Mexican families he drove out to claim their land. Justice, not revenge." Rosa nodded approvingly. That night, 2 groups rode out. One, led by Bill, would handle the warehouse. The other, led by Silas, with Clara insisting on joining, would confront Morrison directly. They found him at his hotel, counting money in his office. His injured hand was still bandaged, a constant reminder of Clara's marksmanship. He looked up as they entered, face purpling. "How dare you?" "Shut up," Clara said calmly, her pistol steady. "Sit down and listen." Morrison sat, eyes darting between them. His guards were notably absent, having been lured away by Tom's creative distraction at the saloon. "You have 2 choices," Silas said. "Leave Wyoming territory tonight. Never return. Never contact us again. Or stay and face the consequences." "You can't threaten me. I have friends. Influence." "You have nothing," Clara interrupted. "Right now, your warehouse is being emptied. Your ledgers documenting illegal loans and forged land claims are being delivered to the federal marshal in Cheyenne. Your bot sheriff can't protect you from federal investigation." Morrison's face went from purple to white. "You're bluffing." Clara tossed a ledger on his desk, one of many they'd obtained from a disgruntled employee. "Page 43. Your own handwriting, detailing the Ferguson fraud. Want to bet the federal boys will be interested." "What do you want?" Morrison asked. All bluster gone. "I told you, leave. Tonight. Sign this document relinquishing all claims against Clara, myself, and the ranch. Then get out." With shaking hands, Morrison signed. As he packed hastily, Clara felt no triumph, only cold satisfaction. Justice, not revenge. "You haven't won." Morrison snarled as they escorted him to the stage depot. "People like you don't win. You'll get on that stage and disappear," Clara said quietly. "Because if you don't, if you ever come back, I won't aim for your hand next time. And unlike you, I don't miss—" They watched the stage disappear into the darkness. Around them, townspeople emerged, having witnessed the confrontation. Some looked disapproving, but others, those who'd suffered under Morrison's greed, nodded with grim satisfaction. "It's done," Silas said quietly. "Is it?" Clara asked. The barn still burned, the horses still dead, the ranch still bleeding money. "We'll rebuild. We always do." Back at the ranch, they found the warehouse team had succeeded beyond expectations. Not only had Morrison's goods been redistributed to those he'd wronged, but grateful recipients had already begun arriving with offers of help. "My boys are good with construction," said Henrik Ferguson, the widow's eldest son. "We'll help raise a new barn. It's the least we can do." "My family, we have horses," added Miguel Santana. "Not fancy, but strong. You need to rebuild your herd. They're yours." Over the following weeks, the barn rose from the ashes literally and figuratively. The community that Morrison had terrorized came together, united by shared purpose and Clara's courage. The virgin bride who'd been sold had become a symbol of resistance against those who would prey on the vulnerable. "You've changed things," Rosa observed one evening, watching Clara direct the barn-raising efforts. "Not just for yourself, for all of us." "I didn't mean to," Clara admitted. "The best changes rarely are intentional," Rosa smiled. "You stood up. Others saw they could too." Samuel Mayfield appeared one last day, hat in hand. Clara met him at the gate, no longer the frightened girl he'd sold. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said quietly. "Just wanted you to know I'm heading east, starting fresh, trying to be better." "Why tell me?" "Because you deserve to know you're free of me, really free." And he pulled out a small leather pouch. "This was your mother's. Hidden it from the creditors all these years. Figured it belongs with you now." Inside was a simple gold locket, her mother's portrait within. Clara's throat tightened. "She'd be proud," Samuel said. "The woman you've become, stronger than either of us ever was." He left without asking for thanks or reconciliation, understanding those were gifts he hadn't earned. Clara watched him go, feeling the last chain of her past fall away. That night, as the community celebrated the completed barn with music and dancing, Clara found herself in Silas's arms, swaying to a slow waltz. "No regrets?" he asked, as had become their tradition. "None," she confirmed. "Although—" "I do wonder what would have happened if you'd lost that poker game, if Morrison or one of the others had won me instead." Silas's arms tightened around her. "Don't!" "I'm not dwelling," Clara assured him. "Just appreciating how different things could have been. How lucky I am that it was you." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Silas admitted. "I cheated." Clara pulled back, staring at him. "What?" "Not with the cards," he clarified quickly. "But I made sure I had enough money to outbid anyone. Borrowed against everything I owned. I wasn't leaving that saloon without you." "But why you didn't know me?" "I knew enough. Knew you deserved better than what was happening. Knew you had strength, even if you couldn't see it then." He touched her face gently. "Knew I couldn't let another woman be destroyed by circumstances beyond her control. So you saved me." "No," Silas corrected. "I gave you the chance to save yourself. Everything after that was all you—" Clara kissed him then, pouring all her gratitude and love into the gesture. Around them, the celebration continued. Former enemies, now friends. A community healed, a ranch rebuilt. "You know what this means," she said when they parted. "What?" "The virgin bride really was sold to a rich cowboy, but she wasn't claimed fiercely." Clara smiled. "She claimed herself, and then chose her cowboy freely. Better story, Silas agreed. The best stories are the ones we write ourselves, Clara said, pulling him back to the dance. And ours is just beginning. The barn stood tall against the stars, built not by money or force, but by community and courage. Inside, horses nickered contentedly, some saved from the fire, others gifted by grateful neighbors. The ranch would survive and thrive, not because of one man's wealth, but because of one woman's refusal to be broken. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges. The territorial government was changing, statehood looming, bringing new laws and new troubles. But tonight was for celebration, for dancing, for remembering how far they'd come. Clara Mayfield, sold and bought, had become Clara soon-to-be Thornton, free and choosing. The transformation was complete, but the story, their story, was far from over. The morning sun painted the Wyoming plains gold as Clara stood before the simple altar they'd constructed in the meadow. The same meadow where violence had erupted months ago now hosted something beautiful, a wedding witnessed by the entire community that had rallied around them. She wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved in tissue and lavender, altered by Rosa's skilled hands to fit perfectly. The small scar on her cheek caught the light. No longer a mark of shame, but a reminder of survival. In her hands, she carried wildflowers gathered at dawn, their simple beauty more precious than any hothouse bouquet. Silas waited at the altar, clean-shaven and wearing his best suit, looking at her with such open adoration that several of the ranch wives dabbed at their eyes. Bill stood as his best man, while Rosa had claimed the honor of giving Clara away. Since you have no worthless father to do it properly, she'd declared. Dearly beloved, Judge Whitman began, the same man who'd overseen the fight at the Oak, now presiding over something far more joyful. We gather here under God's great sky to witness something rare in this harsh land, love that has been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Clara barely heard the traditional words, lost in Silas's gray eyes. When it came time for vows, they'd chosen to speak their own. Clara, Silas began, his voice strong despite the emotion. They say I bought you, but the truth is you've bought me with your courage, your strength, your refusal to be anything less than yourself. I promise to cherish your freedom as much as I cherish you, to be your partner, not your master, in all the days to come. Clara's voice was clear as mountain water when she replied, Silas, you gave me choices when I had none, dignity when the world would strip it away. But I don't stand here out of gratitude or obligation. I stand here because I choose you today, tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after. You didn't just claim me. You saw me, and I see you too. The rings, Judge Whitman prompted. Young Eddie, scrubbed clean and beaming, produced the bands, simple silver, engraved with a running horse symbol of freedom and strength. With this ring, Silas said, sliding it onto Clara's finger, I choose you forever. With this ring, Clara echoed, her hands steady. I choose you forever. Then, by the power vested in me, by Wyoming territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Thornton, and this time nobody's counting the cost. Laughter rippled through the gathering as Silas pulled Clara close. Their kiss met with cheers and a few good-natured whoops from the ranch hands. The celebration that followed was unlike anything the ranch had seen. Long tables groaned under the weight of food contributed by neighbors' Mexican tamales, German sausages, Irish stew, American barbecue, a feast representing the community Morrison had tried to divide. Never thought I'd see the day, Tom admitted, raising his glass to Clara. When you first came here, I thought, well, doesn't matter what I thought. I was wrong. You've got more grit than any of us. Careful, Tom, Clara teased. Keep talking like that, and people might think you've grown up. As evening fell, lanterns were lit and music filled the air. Silas had brought down his banjo, joined by fiddles and guitars and even an accordion. Clara found herself passed from partner to partner in the dancing, each man carefully respectful. each woman offering whispered congratulations and advice. The secret to managing ranchmen. Mrs. Henderson confided. The same woman who'd once whispered scandals about her. It is to let them think they're in charge while you run everything important. I'll remember that, Clara promised, marveling at how much had changed. As the party continued around them, Silas drew Clara aside, leading her to a quiet spot overlooking the ranch. The buildings spread below them, the new barn raising proud against the sky, the house where she'd found refuge, the land that had become home. I have something for you, he said, producing a leather portfolio. Wedding gift. Inside were legal documents, meticulously prepared. Clara read them slowly, her eyes widening. You're making me co-owner, full partner in the ranch. Said I would. Didn't I, partners in everything? He watched her carefully. Unless you'd rather. She silenced him with a kiss. It's perfect, though you know this means I'll have opinions about the horse breeding program. I'm counting on it. You've got better instincts than half my men. They stood together, watching their domain, their ranch, their future. There's one more thing, Silas said quietly. I've been thinking about what you said, about choices and freedom. There might be other girls out there, trapped like you were. What if we could help them? Clara turned to him, eyes bright. What are you suggesting? The old Mitchell place is for sale. 20 acres, good house. We could buy it, set it up as a way station, somewhere women could come if they need shelter. Time to figure out their next move. Rosa knows people, could spread the word carefully. A place to choose. Clara breathed. Yes, we should do that. Knew you'd say that. His smile was proud. My wife, the revolutionary. Your wife, Clara repeated, savoring the words. I like how that sounds, though I'm keeping my aim sharp, just in case any other men get ideas about buying women at poker games. Poor fools wouldn't know what hit them. They returned to find the party still in full swing. Henrik Ferguson had brought out his harmonica, leading the gathering in old trail songs. Children who should have been abed hours ago ran between the dancers, drunk on excitement and wedding cake. Dance with me, Clara commanded her new husband. A proper dance, not that careful circling we've been doing for months. He swept her into his arms as the musician struck up a slow waltz. This time there was no hesitation, no careful distance. Clara rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, strong and steady. Do you remember? She asked softly. That night you played banjo for me when you held my hands on the strings. I remember wanting to kiss you so badly it felt like dying. Why didn't you? Because you deserve to be courted, not conquered, to be won, not taken. And now you're my wife, and I'll kiss you whenever you'll let me. Bold words, Mr. Thornton. He demonstrated his boldness, dipping her dramatically to the delight of onlookers. When he pulled her up, both were laughing free, joyful, complete. The party lasted until dawn, when even the hardiest celebrants finally headed home or to the bunkhouse. Clara and Silas stood on their porch, watching the sun rise over their land, their shared land now. No regrets, he asked one final time. None, Clara said firmly. Then, with a mischievous smile, although I do think we should work on expanding our family. Silas's eyebrows rose, already. I meant horses, you scoundrel. That new bloodline from California you've been wanting. His laughter rang across the ranch. You'll be the death of me, woman. But what a way to go. Inside the house, Rosa had left coffee brewing and a note. Gone to town. Don't expect me back until tomorrow. The house is yours. R. Clara blushed, understanding the gift of privacy. As Silas pulled her close, she thought about the journey that had brought them here from that terrible day in the saloon to this perfect morning. I used to dream about freedom, she told him. about wide-open spaces where no one owned me, where I could just be. I never dreamed about love. Seemed too dangerous to hope for. And now I know they're the same thing. Real love is freedom. The freedom to choose, again and again, to stand beside someone. Philosophy before breakfast, Mrs. Thornton. Get used to it, Mr. Thornton. You married an educated woman? Self-educated, he corrected. The best kind. As the ranch woke around them, horses nickering for feed, roosters crowing, the eternal cycle of life demanding attention, Clara took a moment to simply be. She was no longer the virgin bride, sold and claimed. She was Clara Thornton, rancher, partner, wife by choice. The girl who'd stood trembling in a saloon, worth nothing more than her father's poker debt, was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd found her strength in the crucible of adversity, who'd chosen love on her own terms, who'd built a life worth living from the ashes of what others had tried to make her. Come on, she said, tugging Silas toward the door. Those horses won't feed themselves, and I want to check on the new mare. I think she's finally ready to start training. Already back to work, it's our wedding day. Every day is our wedding day, Clara said simply. Every day we choose each other again. Now stop mooning and help me with the chores. This ranch doesn't run on love alone. But as they worked side by side in the morning light, feeding horses, checking fences, planning their future, it was clear that love was the foundation everything else was built on. Not the desperate, grasping love of possession, but the steady, strong love of partnership. The virgin bride had been sold. The rich cowboy had claimed her. But in the end, they had claimed each other, fiercely, freely, forever. And that, Clara thought, as she watched her husband gentle a skittish colt with patient hands, was the only story that mattered, the story they would continue writing together, one choice at a time, for all the years to come. Their love had been tested by fire, literal and figurative, and emerged not just intact but transformed. Like gold refined in a crucible, it was pure, strong, and true. And it was theirs. Finally and forever, it was theirs. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I hope Clara and Silas's journey touched your heart as much as it touched mine while sharing it. I'd love to know where in the world are you listening to this tale of courage, choice, and love. Please share in the comments below so we can connect across the miles and discuss what this story meant to you. If you enjoyed this narrative, please consider subscribing to Wild West Night for more authentic frontier tales. Don't forget to like this video and hit that hype button to help this story reach more listeners who appreciate real, raw stories of love conquering all in the American West. Until next time, keep riding toward your own sunset,